Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's SANS webcast. AWS Well Architected. A well-architected environment is a more secure and operationally excellent environment. My name is Carol, author of SANS, and I will be moderating today's webcast. Today's featured speaker is Jonathan Kirby, TA and instructor candidate for SANS Cloud Security. If during the webcast you have any questions for our presenter, please enter them into the questions window at any time. Please note that this webcast is being recorded, and a copy of the slides and recording of this webcast will be available for viewing later today and can be found on the SANS registration page. And with that, I'd like to turn the webcast over to Jonathan.
Excellent. Thank you, Carol. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you're joining me from throughout the world. This is awesome that you can be almost anywhere in the world and joining me today. So thank you. Welcome. Welcome to AWS Well Architected. A well-architected environment is a more secure and operationally excellent environment. Again, my name is Jonathan Kirby. I'll start off by telling you a little bit more about me and who I am, what I'm interested in, and what my goals are really. So I'm a leader, an instructor, and a mentor. And I like to say that I practice cloud security, DevSecOps, and all things human security, versus saying that I'm a cloud security engineer. The reason I say this, or I like to say this, is because as a cloud security engineer, I get to work with software engineers to help them build more secure software. I help cloud architects and engineers build more secure cloud infrastructure and monitoring systems. And I get to work with the business to improve our overall enterprise security and risk posture through governance, risk management, compliance efforts, policies, different things like that to make sure that we are on the right path for success. My current goals include learning really everything I possibly can about leadership, cloud and cloud security, and all things DevSecOps. And then I want to share all of that knowledge with the next generation of security professionals and the community at large. So with that, again, let me start by saying thank you for joining me today. And I hope that you find some of the things that I talk about today helpful and useful in your work. This webcast or this talk is really well suited for anyone in a leadership role that is looking to either build a cloud security program, or maybe you're looking to transition from a more on-premise environment and want to make sure that you're doing things right as you migrate to the cloud. It's also for technicians out there who want to make sure that what they're doing technically and tactically are focused on the most excellent things that are available that the folks at AWS and throughout the entire industry have identified as being best practices and things that we should focus on to be great. And really for anyone just, that likes to build stuff or monitor and just kind of have that vision or direction. Maybe you're new to security, maybe you're new to the cloud, and maybe you don't know where to start. These are things, again, everything that I'm going to be talking about is going to be well suited for each of those different audiences. So we're going to look at what is a framework and why we should like them and use them in general. Then we'll dig into the well-architected framework, the AWS well-architected framework. We'll review each of the 5 pillars and their respective design principles and best practices for success. And after I review the framework in each of the respective pillars, I'll discuss how all of this helps security, why we're here today, how does this help security, and a few of the tools that you should be aware of for building successful, more secure and operationally excellent stuff. There are a lot of tools out there to help us. So let's start off by understanding what is a framework. Google/Oxford Languages defines a framework as an essential supporting structure of a building, vehicle, or object. When I read that, I think of my car frame. Everything we usually think about with our car or truck is all built on top of and around the frame. The frame is the foundation. Or you might have heard people say things like a house has good bones. They're really talking about the structural integrity of the house or the home and the frame or framework of the house. Another definition that is provided is a basic structure underlying a system, concept, or text. So real quick, let's notice the word structure in both of these definitions. Another word that also comes to mind for me is foundation. You have to have a foundation first before you can start building anything if you want it to, or if you don't want it to be blown down the first time the big bad wolf comes along to blow your house down. You gotta have a solid foundation first. So that's where we like to build off of. So why should you care? Good question. Other than not wanting the wolf to blow your house down, we should care about and use frameworks because they bring everyone together around a common strategic approach to how we're going to operate. If everybody's on the same page and everybody's focused on the same goals, we're able to operate more efficiently. We're focused on the same things. Then, or also, they provide a common language around all the various stakeholders or for all the various stakeholders. So everyone involved, whether technically or leadership, strategically, the business, we want to make sure that we're using the same common language when we talk about stuff. And again, the last great thing about a framework is they're backed by the industry as a recommended approach for achieving excellence. So again, you'll see me say that word excellence quite a bit. Quick side note, that's really a throwback to Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I like excellence. All right, some of AWS's approaches to architecting. I think it's important to take a look at this first before we move on to the framework. So they have, or AWS has, practices or ways of doing things, processes, standards, and accepted norms that focus on enabling each team to be successful in a given thing or project. These practices also ensure that the team raises the bar on standards they meet and continue to get better. And then they also have implemented mechanisms that carry out automated checks to ensure standards are being met. So that's really cool. Automate stuff to make sure that what's being done is what you're expecting to be done. Sounds like a good idea to me. Jeff Bezos is quoted as saying, "Good intentions never work. You need good mechanisms to make things happen." This means that replacing humans' best efforts with mechanisms that check for compliance with rules or processes. Guardrails is what I think of with that. We talk a lot about guardrails and paved roads in cloud. And another last point, it's not noted here on the screen, but I think it's worth mentioning, is AWS focuses a lot on reverse engineering. They start with the end goal in mind and then break everything down into little pieces. Working backwards is a fundamental part of the innovation process. So they embrace that reverse engineering and working backwards as being fundamental for the innovative process. So now that we understand what a framework is, why we should use them, and AWS's approach on architecture or to architecture, let's dig into the Well Architected framework. The AWS Well Architected framework consists of 5 pillars, each with design principles and best practices. And its purpose is to provide guidance and recommendations from industry experts for building secure, high-performing, resilient, and efficient infrastructure for applications and workloads. My key takeaway from that statement really is AWS is telling all of us exactly what we need to do to be awesome working in AWS. And by all of us, I really mean all of us developers, cloud engineers, architects, leadership, security, everyone working in AWS. All of us care about various parts of those things that I just mentioned with security, high performance, resiliency, efficient, cost effective. We all care about those things, and they're important to our business and operational success. So security, check. High performing, check. Resilient, efficient, cost effective, check, check, check. We like them all. Also, I think it's important to remember that these are not requirements. I often hear people say, best practices, we have to do this. Well, we don't have to. Again, remember, these are a collection of recommendations from industry experts across many industries. So they can provide guidance across most use cases. Again, the reason why I say guidance and recommendations, again, these are great, reinforce best practices. Again, I love them, they're great, but they're not one size fits all. We need to, it's our responsibility, we need to understand the framework, the best practices, and use them as a guide to navigate our specific use cases. So consider the best practices and design principles. Ask yourself what you're currently doing in comparison. How do you compare? And then use it as a guide for continuous improvement for your specific needs. So AWS says creating software is a lot like constructing a building. If the foundation is not solid, structural problems can undermine the integrity and function of the building. Remember the definitions we just reviewed at the beginning. It sounds familiar, right? They might be onto something here. I definitely agree with this as well. So I've heard many different times from different types of engineers over the years say things like, we'd like to do that, fill in the blank, but it would take more time to redo or undo a bunch of other stuff first versus building it all new. Or we don't really know what all is connected to the thing, and we can't afford to break anything. I understand, I get it. So using the well-architected framework as a guide will absolutely help reduce those types of issues or concerns. Again, this is designed to help you build at scale and continue to innovate continuously over time. So you don't have that long history maybe of technical debt. Side note, real quick. The less time you have to spend undoing all the bad stuff standing in your way, the more time you get to spend researching, innovating, and building new and better features that will make you more money, potentially, if that's your goal. Maybe you're not for profit, in which case the money is not your main focus. But that's the stuff that we actually want to be doing, the fun stuff. We want to spend our time on innovating and building new cool stuff, imagining what could be. And that's one of the things that I love about the cloud in general, is that your imagination is really the only thing standing in your way of creating anything you want, almost anything you want. You've got the tools to be successful. Sorry, almost skipped ahead real quick. All right, before we go on, you might be thinking, where's the ranking? 1, 2, 3, 4, or how do I know? Usually these things have an order to work in. How do I know which pillar is most important? Well, with these pillars, with the pillars, no one pillar is any more important than any of the others by default, A well-architected environment or system has balance across all of the pillars. They support each other. Of course, you'll want to tailor your use and experience of the pillars to your specific cases and business use cases and requirements. Just remember that if you give too much attention to any one pillar, the others will suffer as a result. If you're here coming from a security background specifically, think of the CIA triad. If we focus on confidentiality, integrity, or availability more than any of the others, we're pulling away resources from the balance. So it's good to focus on balance. All right, let's take a look at each of the pillars individually. So the operational excellence pillar includes the ability to support development and run workloads effectively, gain insights into their operations, and to continuously improve supporting processes and procedures to deliver business value. While all of the respective design principles and best practices for each of the pillars, they're all important, I will call out ones along the way that I believe are particularly important and or how they might help security. For operational excellence, my best advice here is use infrastructure as code as much as possible and make small, frequent changes, iterate over time. And these small, frequent changes, they can be easily undone if something bad happens or if you need to, so you can back it up. It's small. You're not trying to course correct a cruise ship or, you know, a 747 jet. You're just course correcting, you know, a little piece of code or a little, a sports car, let's say. It's a lot easier to navigate a sports car than it is to turn a limo. So little changes, infrastructure as code, frequent changes, so you have lots of practice along the way with making changes, and you'll see how that will help with other pillars as well coming up. But this allows you to scale fast while maintaining consistency as we grow. We like consistency and predictability in security. We don't like it when we get thrown curveballs and we have to quickly shift over here and figure out how to catch up or undo something. So we like consistency. We like predictability as we scale and grow, especially fast, right? And it also helps you recover a lot faster from, you know, whatever fails, because you just need to modify a little piece of code. You don't have to rebuild everything. In the cloud and DevSecOps or DevOps, we accept that we're going to fail. It's a part of what we do. It's a part of the innovation or the innovative process. So it's not so much about preventing failure as much as it is about how fast we can recover when bad things happen, and that we learn from our experiences. So recover fast, fail often, recover fast, and learn from everything we do along the way so we can continue to get better. That's what operational excellence is really all about. The security pillar. Look, we've got an entire pillar dedicated to security, so absolutely this stuff matters to us and will help us be successful. The security pillar, it encompasses the ability to protect data, systems, and assets. I want you to really focus on the best practices here. Invest your time, energy, and effort in the areas of identity and access management. Who has access to your data, your stuff in the cloud that, oh, by the way, isn't on your local server anymore and you don't manage the hardware or the box that it exists in? It's in the public cloud. Identity and access management matters very much. Infrastructure protection. Focus on protecting your infrastructure. Detection and response are also very important. Are we detecting what's going on? We don't want to be blind, and have processes in place for how we're going to respond when things happen. Good, bad, or indifferent, we need to be able to respond to incidents. Also, apply layers or apply security at all layers and automate as much or as many of the best practices as you can along the way. Security at all layers, think zero trust, think everything you do, what do you need to consider to make it a little bit more secure or appropriately secure for your use case? Just think about security everywhere. That comes down to training, really, and education for everyone working in the environment. Up next, we have the reliability pillar. And this encompasses the ability of a workload to perform its intended function correctly and consistently when it's expected to do it, or when it's expected to. This includes the ability to operate and test the workload through its total life cycle. So not just development saying, hey, we built it, operations, you deploy it when you get around to it. That's not what we're talking about here. Or even after it's deployed, we need to be able to maintain it throughout its entire life cycle in production and as we go. It needs to be a reliable system. So for reliability, you want to focus again on automation. Automate recovery for when things fail. Auto scale on demand. When your demand increases, look for ways that you can automatically scale. That is one of the foundational benefits of cloud computing, is the ability to auto scale. Elasticity. Automate changes, change management. Are we automating changes? The less manual tinkering that we have to do, the better, because tinkering leads to inconsistencies. And again, we're focused on scale. We want to be reliable and we want to be operationally excellent at scale. So automate changes, focus on little changes as we go. Automate, failure management is another one. Make sure that when you test, test your automation on all of this. So you're automating, you're automating recovery, you're auto scaling, you're automating changes. Make sure you test all of that so that it actually does what you're expecting it to do when you're no longer got eyes on it, trying to pay attention to exactly what it's doing. Test it, test it. If you're not automating a lot of things just yet, or any at all, that's okay. Start small, little tasks at a time, iterate, continuous improvement. Just, again, that reverse engineering that we talked about at the beginning, break everything down into smaller parts and do little bits and pieces at a time, and see your progress over time will continue to improve. Performance efficiency. This pillar includes the ability to use computing resources efficiently to meet system requirements and to maintain that efficiency as demand changes and technologies evolve. Remember when I said early on with engineers saying we like to do that, but we don't know what it's going to touch, or it might break something, or wasn't really architected very well to begin with. I've also heard the code is a snake pit, or that it's all tangled and intermingled. So again, performance efficiency, we want to focus on things that will help us evolve over time as technology evolves and as new tools come out. We focus here in the performance efficiency that allows us to better grow and to better evolve over time and maintain efficiency. So focus on the best practices here. Look at your selection process. How are you choosing tools, partners, vendors, services? AWS and other cloud services, it's all service-based, APIs, software as a service, or databases as a service. What is your selection process? Does it meet your needs now? Does it also potentially meet your needs in the future? Look at how you review and monitor your selections as well, and the workloads supporting performance efficiencies. Just because they worked for you today, in 6 months from now, in a year from now, however long in the future, does it continue to be the best solution or option for what you're trying to accomplish? Continuous improvement. And then the final pillar of the well-architected framework is cost optimization. AWS makes it really easy to use their stuff. If you forget to turn something off, especially if it costs some money, it can grow quickly. You want to be careful here. So it's important, again, for a well-architected environment, infrastructure, costs matter because, great, build the best thing, but it's going to cost you $5 million or $10 million. No. We don't want to be wasteful, especially when we can laser focus in on exactly what we need based on the other pillars to do our jobs. We're not using a bunch of extra stuff. So what are things that we can do to optimize our cost? Focus. The focus with this pillar is the ability to run systems that deliver business value at the lowest price point possible. This includes having financial management plans and also controls in place for minimizing cost. Put alerts in place that will let you know if you break or are approaching thresholds that you put in place. Like, might seem silly, but even on my personal account, I've got an alert that says, you know what, if my spend is more than $5 in a month or $10 in a month, I want to know about it because I don't want to be spending money on stuff that I don't know is going on. Also, it helps me remember maybe I forgot to turn off or disable a service that I'm done with. Same thing in the enterprise. Measure efficiencies as you go as well. And also attribute your spending to respective projects, workloads, even business units here. This really helps from a financial planning standpoint. It'll make a lot of CFOs very happy, in my opinion, if we can attribute all of the spend in our cloud environments to specific projects, specific business units, whatever it is that we are working on. It's great to know down to the dollars, pennies, cents, the dollars and cents of what it's costing the organization. And then that helps us look at cost benefit analysis. Is it worth, are we getting the value out of this thing compared to what it's costing us to deliver, create, deliver, support? So it really helps us understand and maintain specific projects. So you might be thinking, how does all of this help security? Okay, we've got, operational excellence and security and performance efficiency and cost optimization and reliability. Why do I say that a well-architected environment is more secure and operationally excellent? I say this because all of the design principles and best practices detailed within each of the 5 pillars, these are also best practices for security and contribute to building a stronger, more mature security program that reduces risk to the organization. Remember, our ultimate goal from a security perspective, our mission is to reduce risk to our organizations. The well-architected framework helps our architects and engineers design, build, and support systems and applications that are optimized for success in the cloud, and that includes security. So my big recommendation or takeaway here is start prioritizing projects focused on improving in these design principles and best practices. Start small if you're not doing them. Continuous improvement here. So it doesn't matter if you've never heard of the well-architected before, or your organization is maybe already following the framework and has elements of it. Start by evaluating where you currently stand, which I'll talk about here in a few minutes, and then create projects for areas that need improvement. Sprinkle those projects in little by little, or consider re-architecting stuff if you want to rip the Band-Aid off. That's okay. What's appropriate for your environment, obviously. Don't need to go rogue or cowboy on or cowgirl on all of us. But after an X amount of time or progress, reevaluate where you stand against the framework, and then create more tickets and projects for additional improvements. Again, continuous integration, continuous improvement here. That's the focus, always striving to get better. I'll be honest, if you haven't figured it out by now, I love frameworks. I believe they provide a proven direction and a pathway for success in a given thing, whatever that thing is. Call it a recipe for success. When you plan your work, plan the projects that specifically support or contribute to specific frameworks. If your project doesn't support your respective framework that you're working on, it might be a good idea to evaluate if your projects are focused on the most important things to improve your overall security program. The well-architected framework can be laid over and or aligned with other existing security and risk frameworks. There's a lot of overlap here with this stuff. You've probably already started thinking about, hey, we are already doing that with some other stuff, and it's great that we can now apply that specifically to our AWS environment or even other clouds, which we'll see here in just a moment. Maybe you don't subscribe to NIST. Maybe you use other frameworks. There are a number of other industry respected frameworks out there. Or maybe your program is not as mature or you're not guided by any industry respected frameworks at this time. That's okay. If that's the case, I would strongly encourage you to adopt these respected frameworks. These are well-respected frameworks. Some of them, the NIST frameworks, were designed specifically originally, therefore government military, but I haven't worked in a government military capacity. I'm very well familiar with these frameworks, and I can tell you they absolutely apply to the public sector and non-government entities. These are very excellent best practices and frameworks here. So if you're not using anything, I would strongly encourage you to take a look at these, consider adopting these well-respected frameworks as a guide for you to start building your program or improving your program, depending on where you stand today. Start today. There's no better time to start on your adventure than right now. It's never too late to start doing what you love. Or how about this one? It's never too late to start living your dream. There you go. So the well-architected framework, it started as just a white paper. A couple of years ago, and this was, I don't know, maybe, I think it was back in 2015, 2016. I wish I would have grabbed the date. My apologies for that. But it started as a white paper. And then I remember just a couple of years ago, AWS released the Well Architected tool. The tool is available in the management console. And for a given workload or project, you answer a series of questions for all of the pillars and review how you compare to, the well-architected framework and the best recommendations that AWS has to offer. So that's pretty cool. That's neat. You get reports, or you can get reports based on your results, as well as videos and documentation for things you can do to improve in the respective areas. And it's also worth noting, the well-architected tool, it can be used for any scenario, really. It doesn't even need to be an AWS project. Anything you're building could be used here. Since we're talking about architecting something or architecture, and this is a framework, it can really be applied to almost any environment, any cloud, any scenario you want where you're building something. At the end of the day, the well-architected tool is really just a self-assessment questionnaire. It's beautiful. So here's another really cool one, even more recent. This is continuing to grow, which again tells us that it's really important to be successful in AWS, that they continue to invest in developing these tools and resources for the community. So this website, it offers a series of free labs and activities for things you can do for each pillar. And there are even activities for the well-architected tool. If you're like, I don't know what the well-architected tool is, hey, there's activities, there's labs for how to use the well-architected tool. There are various difficulty levels, and you're provided with a step-by-step directions for completing the task. Pretty cool. Again, free, hands-on learning for things you should start implementing immediately if you are not already doing them. One disclaimer, I know I said free labs. While the labs are free, you're still responsible for all of the underlying resources that you might use in the labs. Also, don't use production environment to do your labs, which you probably already know anyways, but a lot of stuff's covered in the free tier. The labs even give you an estimate of, if you do this, here is what it might cost, small amounts, but you know ahead of time. Again, great resource here. So this is the well-architected framework, the pillars, design principles, and everything that I believe supports to a secure or more secure and operationally excellent environment. I hope you enjoyed everything that we covered today, and there's some takeaways that you can explore afterwards. With that, I'll open it up for any questions that you might have. I think Carol was taking note of some questions maybe along the way, or if you want to drop any in.
Yeah, thanks for that great presentation. We do have a couple of questions ready for the Q&A. However, if anyone has a question for Jonathan, please enter them into the questions window now. This first one asks, what is your opinion about GCSA? And it says in parentheses, from CSA.
Yeah, so I haven't taken that exam or the training directly, though I've spoken to several peers along the way. And I believe from what I have heard, it is a very well respected and a good foundational start to cloud security. That said, Cloud Security Alliance, again, they're one of the leaders in the industry. So I think most of what I'm seeing coming out of Cloud Security Alliance is also top-notch and well trusted. Thank you.
All right, thanks. This next one says, maybe unrelated to this webinar, but when conducting a cloud pen test, are the tools and techniques more or less the same as a network or web application pen test?
Good question. So yes, first off, that's a little bit out of scope here. Tools and techniques are similar. The targets are different. So we do have, I'll shift back here. We do have the cloud penetration testing course, which has a new certification if you're interested. And that's really looking not just at the network layer, but also all of the cloud services that we're starting to dig into that support a cloud environment, like things like GitHub and our repositories, cloud native technologies like containers and Kubernetes. So tools and techniques are still going to be similar. The TTPs, it's just a different attack surface, a different plane really that we're focusing on, a little bit different. But I'd encourage you to check out that course, really that page for more details.
Thank you. What would be your recommendation to segment application data inside a multi-tenant environment? Often it is recommended that a dedicated VPC is used for application that, say, traverse or store regulatory data, but that is not cost effective.
I definitely think it is good to segment data and by criticality or by use case. we don't want to have the blending as much as possible. So even within your own accounts, whether you spin up different accounts or VPCs, VPC peering is helpful here. Specific use cases and architectural designs really should be considered though. But data segmentation, whether you're in the cloud or on-premise, should be at the forefront of that conversation.
Okay, that's all the questions that I see submitted today. Jonathan, do you have any closing thoughts you'd like to share?
Yes, thank you. One last thing I will mention, if you haven't seen it, this is new and updated course curriculum. We've got, I know I mentioned the cloud penetration testing has a new certification, but also the cloud security essentials if you're just getting started out. That has the cloud security essentials certification that just is about to be released or is coming soon. So again, really excellent course. SANS is continuing to develop in these fine-tuned technical areas as well as at the core. So explore where you feel most appropriate to what you're most interested in. That's really all I want to say is find what you're passionate about and there's a place for you.
All right, thanks, Jonathan. We did have one more question pop in while you were talking. It says WAF recommendations.
So for web application firewall specifically, the AWS Web Application Firewall is an excellent firewall. You can build custom rules as well as they have some pre-built security automation rules that you can use. There's also a few good in the marketplace. I haven't specifically looked at all of them, but there's some good partners there from a web application firewall. If you're looking at the description of this talk, I used a little play on words with the WAF when I said the Well Architected Framework, WAF, putting that with our risk management framework, the RMF, and our CSF, the Cloud Security Framework. So apologies if that joke or that wordplay didn't make it across very well, but yes.
All right, another one came in. Is SEC 545 course discontinued?
Good question. I don't know that I'm able to discuss that. It's not on the curriculum sheet here specifically, so I believe we still have classes on the schedule that are continuing to run there. I don't know the status on that.
All right, well, thank you so much, Jonathan, for your great presentation, which helps bring this content to the SANS community. To our audience, we greatly appreciate you listening in. For a schedule of all upcoming and archived SANS webcasts, including this one, please visit sans.org/webcasts. Until next time, take care, and we hope to have you back again for the next SANS webcast.
All right. Thank you.